Hello, my name is Dave Shadovitz, editor of Human Resource Executive, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar on using recognition to drive greater employee engagement. Special thanks goes to Achievers for sponsoring today's webinar. Achievers' mission is to change the way the world works. Their employee success platform is specifically designed to drive higher levels of employee engagement. It's built to align everyone with business objectives and company values, driven by recognizing shared victories every day. It's designed to make success a way of life. Before we proceed, I wanted to just review a few housekeeping items. First, be sure to have the volume turned up on your computer so you can hear the audio for the webinar. If you have any trouble hearing the audio through your computer, press the request button in the participants box on the top right corner of the screen, and you'll receive teleconference instructions. To ask a question about the content of the presentation during the event, you can use the Q&A panel that you see on your screen. You can send questions to the presenter throughout the presentation, and then we'll be getting to those at the end. Within 48 hours, an archived version of the presentation will be available on the webinars page on our website, hrexecutive.com. And if you encounter a problem during today's webinar, feel free to contact WebEx Technical Support at 866-229-3239. And now on to our presentation today. Research by the Aberdeen Group has found that the number one way best-in-class organizations improve employee engagement is through recognition programs. That despite this, far too many organizations fail to give such programs the attention it deserves. In this webinar, Dr. Bob Nelson will walk you through the steps you can take to maximize the effectiveness of your recognition programs and efforts, detailing proven ways to create a culture and work environment that spurs greater employee engagement and performance. Dr. Bob is a leading advocate for employee recognition, and I'm told he's actually the only person who has done a PhD dissertation on the topic. He has consulted on the subject of recognition for 80% of the Fortune 500 companies, as well as presented on 6 continents. He's also been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Chicago Tribune, CBS 60 Minutes, ABC, and PBS. And he's written a number of important books on the topic of recognition, including 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees and the 1,001 Rewards and Recognition Field Book. His latest book is titled Recognizing and Engaging Employees for Dummies. Dr. Bob, by the way, is responsible for the creation of the Employee Appreciation Day, which incidentally is tomorrow. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, Bob, and please take it from here.
Thank you, Dave. And actually, Employee Appreciation Day is next Friday, so you got some time here still to make some plans to make your people feel special, which is really where I'd say do something personal, thank them, jot them a note, tell them why you value them, is really probably be the top of the list of what you could do. So many times I find companies get caught up in programs, and more than anything, on surveys by employees, on the bottom of the stack is they feel valued. So we got programs we're spending maybe millions of dollars, but if you're not making the connection with the individual where they feel special, where they feel valued, all that's pretty much for waste. We're going to get into more of that in just a moment. I'm delighted to be with you. That's me again. We're going to cover our agenda here. I'm going to give you some thoughts, food for thought for how you can enhance employee engagement through a more strategic use of recognition in your organization. We're going to talk about the power of recognition, the most proven principle of management known to mankind, the value of having a culture of recognition. So we know it works one-on-one in your group. If you get it going, a critical mass in your organization, even more power comes from that. How recognition drives engagement, traditionally what companies have done, are doing, and how you might consider realigning those efforts and budget to be more effective here in today's employees, in today's times, and then conclude with a systems model for again, creating a culture of recognition. Kind of a step back to say what are the key pieces that we find are essential to really be able to say this is real here where we work. It's in the air, it's in our interactions, it's on the wall, it's in all we do, all we say and do. It's not just in the annual report or in the policies, it's alive. That's the culture of recognition, the behavior and the practices. So digging right in, there we go, power of recognition. So again, a very simple concept, and that's actually part of the problem because recognition is common sense. People feel I must be doing it. It's so obvious. It's not. It's not. Do you understand it? Everyone knows it. There's not a introductory supervisory course ever that's been done that didn't have a module on positive feedback or coaching, that type of thing. It's not, you know it's important, it's are you doing it is the key, and that's what gets lost in the mix. So in a nutshell, recognition is acknowledging and appreciating people for their achievements. Notice it doesn't say for showing up. It's actually what people do that's in line, ideally, with the strategic objectives of the organization, the core values, the things that make you competitive, that make the biggest difference. If you're not focused on those things, what you're going to get is going to be garbage. It's going to be random. It's going to be just a feel-good thing that is going to be hard to lever to actually impact the things that make you more strategically successful. Although most employees want recognition, almost universal, from my research, 99.4% of employees expect to be recognized when they do a good work. And notice the one thing that maybe is different from just 10, 15 years ago is the word expect. If you asked us a little bit of time ago, it would be nice if my boss did something, said something. Today, increasingly, employees have an expectation that when they do a good job, when they finish a project, when they delight a customer, when they have a cost-saving idea, when they streamline the process, whatever it might be, to make them more effective, the department more effective, the organization more competitive, they expect someone to notice. With the millennial generation, currently the largest generation in the workplace, they expect recognition on a daily basis, to be thanked and acknowledged, and that drives boomers nuts. You know, they got their own job to do, and it's not because they've got a frail ego and they're the trophy generation, they need to be puffed up. That's not it at all. It's because this generation is smart enough, resourceful enough to know that in fast-moving, dynamic times in which we all currently work, you can't operate in a vacuum. You've got to have a steady stream of feedback. Good job on that. Okay, I can do that again. Without that, they're a bit rudderless. And so it's not just to be nice. It's the feedback is needed to keep them on point to doing the best job they want to do. Because what you ask them to do tomorrow will probably be different than what you asked them to do yesterday. They're not doing the same job day after day after day. That might have been the case in more stable, predictable times of the past. So you got to get rid of the notion that recognition is just a feel-good, blue smoke and mirrors, HR. Happy type thing that to have people like you, that's not it at all. That might be some of the benefit of it, but first and foremost, recognition drives performance, and that's what I'm going to come back to. So almost everyone wants it, although few employees feel they get it today. Only 12% of employees feel recognized in ways that they value. 12%. 34%. 3 times as many say that they're definitely not recognized in ways that are meaningful. The things that they do around here do not connect with me. They're kind of a joke. They seem silly, waste. And with that, 80% of managers currently feel that they're pretty good at recognizing employees. So this is the knowing-doing gap. We've got 80% of managers feel they're all over this. They read the 1-Minute Manager. They know it's important. Only 12% of the employees are getting it. This is a gap that we need to close, and we need to close it with each leader in the organization. Again, that's where we're going to get to. So the value of a culture recognition, if you if you make this happen in any relationship, you're going to get better results from it. What you reward will be repeated. This isn't just with your employees. It's with your spouse, it's with your boss, it's with your neighbors, it's with every human relationship you have in your life. What you noticed, what you recognized, you will get more of that behavior, guaranteed. Most proven principle of management. Now, if you get a critical mass going, where this is everyone's doing it, or the lion's share, critical mass, if you will, you got some other benefits that are important to note. First of all, employees will be 5 times more likely to feel valued than in an organization that isn't a culture of recognition. They'll be 6 times more likely to strongly endorse their company as a great place to work, 7 times more likely to stay with the company for the rest of their career. This is worth the price of admission right here, just this one data point. 7 times more likely to stay with the company for the rest of their career. At a time that we're of a shortage of skilled workers that's just going to get worse over the next 20, 30 years, this brings into focus the importance of you got to do this. And 11 times more likely to feel completely committed to their jobs. Now, that's not committed to an institution. It's committed to doing the best job, to working for the manager, for doing the best to follow the vision and core values of the organization, an alignment, if you will. According to Willis Towers Watson, committed employees deliver 57% more effort than uncommitted ones do. Research from Gallup is similar in the same range. That it's like for every dollar you spend on compensation, total rewards, you get $1.57 back. It's that type of return that if you can hit that pressure point with your employees on a systematic basis where this is real, then you stand to gain quite a lot back from them. Now, so recognition, first and foremost, drives performance. This is research from my doctoral dissertation where I found that managers that report using recognition, they found it helped them achieve their job goals, 60% better achieve their personal goals, enhance productivity, more easily get work done, provide practical feedback, increase employee performance, and better motivates employees. So these are hard drivers of whatever KRIs, objectives that you have for an individual, for the team, or for the organization. So it's important to take it more seriously. And what I'm excited about is the fact that recognition is increasingly being shown to be the main driver of engagement. This other set of variables is to getting the best from employees. And in a nutshell, employee engagement is alignment between the organization and the employees' purpose and values, integrated effort so that employees have clear goals and adequate tools for doing what they do best on a daily basis. And at the same time, they can gain the ability to develop, grow, and enhance their prospects. So it's an alignment between the organization and the individual with the bonus to employees that other things will happen in terms of other opportunities, the ability to learn and grow, a greater alignment in the future if staying with the organization. Again, there's a lot to be said about the power of engagement. I'm not going to get off too much off track on that and just come back to if you want more engaged employees, recognition is the top way to do this. Recognition given for high performance is the most impactful driver of employee engagement, according to Harvard Business Review. And in fact, this was a study that was underwritten by Achievers, our sponsor today. So it's a leading driver of performance. If you do just one thing right in the attempt to get a more engaged workforce, let it be here where you start and how you do recognition in a better, more systematic way. In research by HR Solutions with 3 million employees, they found recognition was the number one driver of employee engagement, accounting for 56% of the variance in employee engagement scores, followed by number 2, career development, followed by number 3, et cetera. But the overall largest driver of engagement is having a culture of recognition, a practice of recognition on a daily basis by managers. And as Dave referenced in his intro, number 1 best-in-class strategy for improving employee engagement by the Aberdeen Group found a strategic integrated employee recognition rewards program that meets the needs of employees and also serves the strategic needs of the organization. So we know it works. We know that it can better enhance the things that are important to the viability and competitive advantage of every organization. Now let's look at what's traditionally done in recognition practices and programs, and it's kind of a sad story because what most organizations historically have done right out of the 1940s or before are things like years of service, employee of the month, holiday parties, birthdays, retirement parties. And what I find happens is these were set up a long time ago. 92+% of organizations have a years of service program, for example. I've never met an employee that stayed a day longer in their job to get their 10-year pin. These types of things are old school and increasingly ineffective at driving performance that matters to the success of your organization. And what's scary about it is because companies have these things set up, and I work with companies that spend $20 million, $30 million just on years of service. And because they have that spend, they feel they're all over this topic. Oh, yeah, we treat people right. We got all these programs. It's like, but then you survey the employees, and they're on the bottom, if not the bottom item is, I feel valued for working in this organization. People don't feel recognized by doing these things. Employee of the month sounds like that's performance-based, and maybe when it started, it was exciting. You got the right person. That's great. But what inevitably happens, whether it's 2 months or 2 years later, there's a group sitting around the conference table, and someone goes, well, we got to do pick an employee of the month. Well, we just did that. Yeah, 30 days ago. It's another month. Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, what about Sally at the front desk? She is so good with our clients. Sally got it in January. Oh, I forgot. Sally's now off the list because she's been named it before. So increasingly, you're trying to pick someone from a smaller and smaller list of people that are less deserving. It gets kind of hard. And after a while, it's like, well, come on, what about Fred in shipping? What, does he deserve it? Who cares? We're going to be here all day unless we pick someone. So Fred gets it. What does he say? I knew if I hung around here long enough, they'd notice me. You might start with the best of intentions, but you end up with an endurance award that you're recognizing presence, not performance. Holiday parties, the same thing, and actually take it even a step further. A lot of people, increasingly, I have a holiday party, Christmas time, and my wife goes, "Oh, do we have to go?" I go, "Well, yes, we should. Why not?" She goes, "Well, remember last year that one person got drunk and told off the boss? That was embarrassing." "Oh, you're right. Yeah, let's skip it this year." It's like companies feel like they're doing this traditional thing and people love it. People don't love it because you haven't taken time to find out what they really want, okay? And then wrap around those things in a systematic way when they demonstrate performance or the things that will make you a better, more competitive organization. That's the key to this. If you're not doing that, you're not getting, I don't care what you're spending, you're not getting the mileage that you could out of this topic. Same with the summer picnics. You had to drag the kids. They didn't really want to go. Birthdays, I don't know about you, but I'd prefer to celebrate my birthday with close family and friends. I don't want to be a big public thing. God. Retirement parties, again, I remember there's a guy at 40. He retired after 35 years, and they had this big party for him. I have this actually in the 1,001 Rewards book, and he had his family and previous bosses and people he cared about in his life, and he said, "This has been the most amazing thing, having this celebration today. I just wonder what you would have gotten different from me over the last 35 years if we started this when I came to work here instead of ending it with that." And that's kind of where it's at. It's like stop doing these traditional things that we're spending money on that aren't giving you the results. Don't go through the motions of just saying, well, do we spend 10% more, 10% less this year? Ask the question, is this getting us what we want at all? Do we even know what it's getting us? Because oftentimes it's not. And then start with a clean slate and say, well, what do people want? I remember I worked with Johnson & Johnson. They surveyed their employees, and they said, You know, we had they listed things that they're currently doing, including benefits and paid time off, all whatever the things that they had going, and then they had some other things that they were scrolling to find out, and then they had some fill in the blanks. They go, God, we got this feedback, and nobody mentioned years of service. We spend millions on that. Why didn't they mention that? I go, well, ask them, not me. But let me just ask you a question. How do you give out that award? Well, we've been doing the same thing for years on someone's 10-year anniversary. They're going to come to work, and they're going to find a clock on their desk. Wow, a clock. Boy, that's exciting. Is there anyone around when they get the clock? No. Is there the staff? There's a note from their manager? No. How about a certificate from the CEO thanking for their years of dedicated service? No. So let me get this straight. They come to work, and they know it's their 10-year anniversary, and here, in the middle of their desk, there's this clock. You know what's going to happen. They pick up the clock, and they say, I wish they'd spell my name right on these things. And, in fact, truth be known, the clock isn't there. They got to ask for it 2 or 3 times, and finally they get it a month or 2 later. It's a joke. It's a complete joke. Stop rewarding years of service and start just focusing on the activity of recognizing. Stop spending money or big budget on that. Shift the budget to things that actually drive performance of the organization. That's my message to you. So realigning your recognition efforts. So wherever you are, to move in a direction where it has greatest impact on what's really important to you. So this would be from presence, recognizing presence, I talked about years of service, to performance. Ideally starting with strategic objectives, core values, departmentally, the things that are going to make us more effective this year as a group, things that are going to save us money, streamlining the process, better serve our customers. Those are the things you should be recognizing, not this blanket stuff that doesn't really do much for anyone today at all. In fact, and I mentioned the millennials, it's a complete disconnect. You say, well, okay, here's the job requirements. Now, a year from now, we're going to sit down and see how you've done this. A year from now, are you kidding me? I don't get feedback. Well, yeah, we'll give you feedback along the way, but that's when we evaluate you after a year. It's like they're going to be gone way before then. The average millennial tenure is 1.8 years, and it's dropping fast. They're not going to tolerate that. They need a steady stream of feedback, and they need to start from day one at work. From a disjointed program to a more consolidated effort, so from things that are random, everyone's doing different things, you don't even know what your spend is because it's all over, everyone's got their own budget, to something that's consolidated and aligned under key strategic objectives, from this being an administrative burden to leveraging technology to increase efficiency and the ability to track and measure the amount of recognition that's going on. So a system of traditionally there isn't measurement and tracking. So you get into the budget year and you go, gee, we spent this many million on recognition, and how did that? What did we get for that? I don't know. People seem to like it. Oh man, that's something I would cut. Now if you systematically measure it, so you know who's doing what and what they're doing it for, now you can manage it. It's one of the things I learned from Dr. Drucker in my PhD program is if you don't measure it, if you can't measure it, or if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So if you want to have a culture of recognition, you got to move in that direction, and part of that is having the baseline foundation of knowing what's being done, who's doing it, who's not doing it, who's getting it, who's not getting it, and then you can align it to the performance of the area, the line of business of the department, whatnot, and then you can see where it's making a difference and how we need to get more people in the game. From one size fits all to broader employee choices. The best motivators are the ones employees pick, so don't pick them for them. Give them a choice whenever possible. From having, I mentioned having like a clock, and so at least if you just, anything you're doing, you can improve it just by increasing the choices. So maybe instead of a clock, they can also get a Weber grill. Maybe they can get a bed and breakfast with their spouse. Even that would increase the motivation. Would that still be, if you're just doing that around, they've been here this many years, again, I think you can do better than that. But if you just stuck doing that one thing, just modifying it to give people a choice, to allow, it used to be, we would just use things like crystal and watches, today, and that moved to more lifestyle things. Now it's moved to more activities, okay? And I think the frontier on this topic is have it move towards things that are more important to employees, which could be career development, a chance to have a discussion with your manager's manager about your career, a chance to go to a conference of your own choosing, a chance to get Audible to self-improvement on tapes in your commute, a chance to be assigned a coach for 6 months. So all those as rewards. That's where I think things are going, and thank God. So again, this is a focus. You can use the same budget and just realign it so you stop rewarding how long someone's been there, and you maybe still recognize that and acknowledge it, but you put the rewards and the budget around the things that are really driving the competitiveness of the organization, innovation, cost saving, et cetera, et cetera. That's my passion for the change organizations need to do. And so the last thing I wanted to share with you was a systems model for creating a culture of recognition. And again, this is based on research with Recognition Professionals International, an association I helped to found quite some years ago, and we had 7 best practices that we identified as being essential for having a culture of recognition. So number 1 in the middle of this is the management accountability, and this is a big one. This isn't something that HR can do alone. This has got to be the responsibility of managers in their sphere of influence. Now, HR can help them. They can provide tools. They can provide assistance. They can coach them. But the heart of the matter is a manager responsibility. In their sphere of managing people, they've got to make this real. They've got to take time to find out, to get to know their people, find out what's important to them, and use that information, what things they value. And that could be from, again, where they want to be in 5 years, which I think is pretty important, but it can also be, what's their favorite food? What's their favorite flower? What hobbies do they have when they're not at work? Are they married? Do they have kids? What are their kids' names? Do they have pets? What are their pets' names? The more you know about someone, the more fodder you have to motivate them. So this is the job of every manager, every leader, are in control of the motivational environment of which the people that work for them operate. And this was a building slide. It's not building here. So the leadership sponsorship on the top is critical. We find that, and in terms of having this be from the top important. It's not a feel-good thing. That it's not just fun and games. This is a driver, if not the single biggest driver of performance, our competitiveness, our ability to attract and keep and get the best out of our people. For many organizations, the biggest expense we have. That's got to come from the top. And it's not just leader sponsorship in terms of blessing the budget. It's also walking the talk in their own behaviors, recognizing people on their staff, because as they do that, that's going to go further to get their managers to start using recognition, to see that it's real. Then so many organizations, it's like, well, you guys do that, and do as I say, not as I do. And then, or sometimes it can be even worse than saying, oh, yeah, this stuff is really important, but did you make your numbers? And people figure out pretty quickly, okay, well, make your numbers first. Think about how you treat people second. Encourage and support people, maybe. Did they make their numbers? And that's what happens. People notice what gets measured gets managed, and that's what they pay attention to. So going around the circle here, and 52% of organizations, according to National SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, 52% of organizations do not have leadership sponsorship on this topic. It's kind of a throwaway topic that we've done since forever, and we haven't had a look at it lately to see what we really could get out of this, the spend and the efficiency and the targeting performance that makes a difference to our success. Measurement and tracking is 36% don't do any measurement and tracking. Again, this is actually a big problem because if it's like, well, it's common sense, everyone do it, send out an email. How'd that work? You know, you did that, and we got a few people that are doing it, and most people don't care, and a few people say I refuse to do it. I've been here longer than you. If you start measuring and tracking, now you've got a baseline that you can then use with data analytics to align with or align the business performance and to align with strategic objectives and to start to give accountability to your leadership to make this real. I worked with Bank of America when they had 200,000+ employees, and I remember on stuff there, you do something like this and you get different reactions across the organization. I remember their commercial lending group. They just thought it was just a big joke. You know, there's the things they come up with in HR, like we don't have anything to do, and there was no way they were going to do this. What a bunch of hooey. And they're bringing in the money. Their work is more important. People are secondary, and it's strong advocacy against the efforts and programs. The first time, as part of our process, we started reporting out recognition utilization at the management leadership meetings. The first time we put up measurement where commercial lending was ranked on the bottom, the head of the group stormed out of the room. We will never be ranked last on anything that's put in front of the leadership team. And all of a sudden, the person that was the biggest advocate against all this became the biggest advocate for it. And we knew we really had succeeded when 6 months later, when we were late on reporting the numbers, that he came to say, hey, where's the recognition scores? Because, high achievers want to be measured because it shows that they're making progress. Measurement's critical, and it's easier to do today with technology. Management training, 81% of organizations don't do any type of management training on this topic. In fact, it's common sense. What's there to train? It's like, well, part of the training is the context of saying, this is what we will do. If you're a leader for our organization, this is an expectation. I worked with Disney for 15 years, and let me tell you, you can't be a leader at Disney and not do this because they know it's integral to their success. They know that there's a direct correlation between how they treat their employees and how employees treat their guests. And so leaders have got to be good at this. They've got to be visionary. They've got to be systematic at giving feedback. They've got to be constantly checking in. And they hire for it. They train for it. If someone doesn't do it, they have a talk about it and say, maybe you thought we were just kidding, and we're going to put you through the training again. But the next talk, if they still don't do it, is a different one. Everyone wasn't meant to be a manager. Let's find you a different role. Because we're not going to have someone muck things up in the middle of our organization because they don't think this is important. That's not happening here. We set a standard and a bar, and we raise that bar for our leadership to follow and emulate. Who doesn't understand that? If you haven't done that in your organization, it's anything goes. People can manage how they were last manager or the first manager they ever had. And if they were treated poorly, now their people are going to be treated poorly. And that's the way you manage it. You call people on the carpet and embarrass them in front of their peers and take no prisoners. You got to change that. The times are over where that was the best approach a long time ago. We can't force performance from anyone today. It's always going to be the employee's choice, and increasingly the choice of if they're even going to stay working for you. The number one reason, according to Robert Half International, as to why people leave their jobs is they aren't valued for the job they're doing now. That ranked above compensation. So increasingly, this is not an optional topic. We have to take it seriously. To flip on the left side of this model, communications, how you talk about this, how you launch the program, how you remind people, how you help your managers, you remind them to do this, give them the tools, give them the reminders, whatever you're doing, to keep it in the air, to keep it in going back to Bank of America, we got to the point where leadership said, "This is, we've got. What can we do to not make this optional?" And one of the things they did, they set the policy. If you're in a meeting in the organization, if it's 3 people or 300, we will always start with some type of recognition. Systematically, we have to work it into our behaviors of all types, and the meetings are a big one. So, have your leaders start with a letter from a customer about a great experience. It reminds us all why we're here. At ESPN, when I worked with them, they had a manager tell me, said, whenever we have a staff meeting, we always start the same way. We as a group, we identify 5 things that are going well. 5 things, and usually that's pretty easy to do. Sometimes it's not because things aren't going well. But we don't skip that step. We stick with it until we can say 5 things that were going well, problems we've overcome, whatever it might be, because that's our touchstone. That's our foundation for taking on the next challenge. It's critical for our group and its ability to work together. So having it at the front end is very important. It worked into your communications, whether it's in the hallway or I was just working with NASA, Johnson Space Center, which is ranked, by the way, number 1 best place to work in federal government. Didn't surprise me, because they do things that again, work this into their practices. They whenever they have a group of managers get together, they have one of their standard things they do. They save 10 minutes at the end of the meeting. As is our custom, let's go around the room and everyone share one thing they've done to recognize someone on their team since we last have been together. Wow. You can just feel the energy rise every time. And something else they notice happen is that their leaders will take notes on other people's ideas. You need to become a self-learning organization to get better and better at this topic, to learn from each other, to say, Jerry, I didn't even know Jerry did that. A lot of times you don't see recognition that people do with their staff. I'm going to start doing what Jerry does. Tell me how you do. Well, when I go to, whatever it is, Jerry goes, well, when I go to a meeting and I'm early, I bring some notes and jot notes to people. When the organization announces some promotions, I always send an email to each of those people. It just takes a second for me, but it's something that connects with them and they value. I hear back from everyone that I do that with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's part of the behavioral repertoire, if you will, of a leader, not just a manager, of a leader that's making things happen. And recognition rewards is the mechanics of the tools and whatnot, and that ranges from just simple thank you notes to could be online platforms such as Achievers and other people have. It could be the tools, the other programs, the points or the gift cards or the time off or and again, don't forget about the other intangibles that are important to employees that may not cost anything. How about that? Things like visibility, things like a choice of working assignment, things like the ability to connect with something they really value if you find out what it is. And this is the part that gets kind of waylaid in the whole industry. The recognition, rewards, and incentive industry in America is a $100 billion business. And most of it is around this, how the money we spend and everything else gets lost. And because, for a lot of vendors, they don't care if you have visibility with upper management. They're not going to be able to make money off of that. That might be the key thing you need to do to bring people together, to align the organization, to show that your top leaders are real and accessible, to get the questions asked by the front line that they need to know, and to pull everyone together. I don't know of any incentive company that would recommend that, because how they get paid to do that. It's not. And now points, that's something else. More points, I could see that. They'll recommend that. That may not be the answer. The answer might be more assessing what your people most want independently of the programs you're currently doing. And you might be surprised when the things that they come up with are things that don't cost anything, that they truly would value more. And the last item here on the bottom is process improvement. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you are in the journey, whether you're just starting from scratch or you're trying to institute or relaunch some efforts to hopefully dust off what you're doing and say, we've been stuck on autopilot here for 25 years. why don't we really let's do some focus groups. Let's ask people what is most important to them. I work with a couple Fortune 100 high-tech companies now, and when we get to that level of not just assuming we know what recognition is, but actually asking them, for a high-tech employee, it's to be a part of the exciting new software, to be on the project team, to be on the task force that's really making a difference. Those are no-cost options. It's not getting another gift card that does it for them. It's like, really, so you gotta tune in and see what really does it for your employees, and because that's where motivation starts, with what's important to people, and then take that seriously to try to deliver more of that in a systematic basis when they've performed in ways that benefit not just them in the department, but the organization as well. Again, ideally tying back to the strategic objectives, the core values, whether it's innovation or customer service, whether it's process improvement, whether it's cost-saving ideas. No matter what it is, you can drive more of it with recognition. So no matter what you're doing, you got to check in and periodically, and probably more often than most people are. I kind of recommend every 12 weeks, like once a quarter, to tweak what you're doing. And so I said to one person, 12 weeks, really? We do like every 12 years. It's like, whatever it is, you got to check in. You can't assume like, well, it's in gear, so let's just keep doing the same thing. In fact, let's increase more points or let's add gift cards, or instead of doing the buffet, let's do the sit down for the years of service celebration. That's not going to get you the results that, again, you could get from this. With that, of all those elements, the core element is management. This is true of engagement as well. From Gallup's research, that by far the strongest, the largest variable that in their work drives engagement is management, the individual manager and their sphere of influence, and the things they do or don't do with their employees that help makes them want to come in and do their best on a daily basis. And ultimately, so you can't just assume that they know what's right, or you can just send an email, no, I'll do the right thing. You got to actually up the ante a bit, and you got to set the standard of which they need to aspire, and you got to tell them the importance of it. So really, I consider it a head, hands, and heart approach. So the head is the mental, conceptual model of management. For a lot of people, especially the older you are, the more likely it's an old school one that dates back to taking names and kicking butt. That doesn't cut it today. It's the this new approaches to management is because we've got a new army. We've got a new with different expectations, because we're in different, fast-moving, constantly changing times. We can't just bark orders from the top and expect that to connect. We got to actually connect to the talent that can help us do the jobs that maybe we couldn't do ourselves. Okay, so that's why it's important. It's important now, going in the future. It's going to be more important as the talent shortage increases, and that's why for each of us it's going to be part of what we do. As an organization, we're going to be the best at this. We're not going to limp through and just do what we've always done. I'm calling on every leader to personally take this up. And there's a lot of strategies for how you can get there, to get everyone on board, because some people are already doing it. There's a lot of lurkers, that just see if we even hear about it a second time in most corporations. And then there's the diehard group that says, hey, I've been here longer than you. I'm not doing it. I'm not changing. You can't force me. And then, at some point, you get something going, get moving in the right direction, recognize that progress, call out people that are doing it. There's a whole process to that. It's kind of an internal marketing thing. And then you get more of the lurkers on board. And then how you handle that. And then as you're tracking stuff, you're showing people that are good, the leaderboard of who's doing this. You're calling the leaders out. I worked with Wellstar Hospital, 7 hospitals in the Atlanta area. They did, and along the way they said, hey, what are we doing for our leaders around recognition? They weren't doing anything. Well, they started doing they created a pads of paper with the core values that they gave to leaders to use with other leaders. When you saw another leader doing service, doing teamwork, doing whatever it was, put their name on it, check the list, hand them the piece of paper. That's it. And then when they got them together once a quarter, who's been recognized for one of our core values? How about 2 of the core values? How about 3 of the core values? How about 4 of those core? Those people have been recognized for 4 of our core values in the last quarter. Come up to the front of the room. Let's give them a standing ovation, because these are our leaders that are walking the talk. And for this group, on the way out, we got some books there for better help your leadership skills. Grab one of those on the way out. And the whole program, I think it cost $200, but drove a lot of focus and attention on the people that need to be driving this whole program. The hands is what it looks like. Again, you can have a well-intentioned manager, but if it wasn't part of their upbringing, if they didn't have a mentor that told them to never forget about the little guy, that they're going to fumble, they're going to so you got to actually be explicit. This is how you do it. That's part of it. And as the more that you get that going, the easier people can pick it up and try and learn from each other. And then ultimately you're trying to get them to see with their own eyes that this is real. This does impact employees. It makes all our jobs easier. And so they have, it's a heart that they get their own passion for it, where they see, not you telling them, but they see, I can't believe I haven't been doing this. I can't believe this is so critical. And it's a great awakening when a leader finds that, and it's exciting. And if you get a critical mass of your leaders, ideally all of them in that place, you'll have an incredibly strong cultural recognition, and all the benefits will directly follow. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and we got saved a few minutes for questions. Here's some info about me and my services. I help companies get aligned and improved on this topic. Whatever you're doing now, I can help you take it to a new level. And if you're working with a vendor and that's up for review, and you want to check to see what other people can do for you, I know everybody. I've worked with everybody, and I can help sort through that process. I speak for companies across the country, around the world on this topic to raise the bar, conferences, associations. The training I do can be for your leadership team, or it could be a train the trainer to get your trainers to start taking this as an ongoing part of our culture. And then the resources, the blogs. I'm excited to mention I just other day sent in manuscript for a new book. It's going to be out in July. It's 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees. Be my 30th book. So stay tuned for that.
Well, Bob, thank you so much, Bob. At the very beginning, and we got some questions in so we can get to them. At the very beginning, I had mentioned about your creating Employee Appreciation Day, and I actually, while you were speaking, I Googled and confirmed that it is indeed tomorrow, first Friday in March.
Okay, my bad.
March 2nd. So in any case, I was wondering if you might take a moment to kind of let us know why you created the day. What was your thinking behind it?
Well, actually, employees need this every day. But I thought at least one day, just bring attention to it to remind people of the importance of it. And that was a trigger mechanism to help put it in the mix. And a lot of companies today, so now it's on a lot of calendars, a lot of companies now, they do things around that. And I guess I don't like the fact that for some companies that's the only time that they do something special for employees. I think it does need to be a daily basis. But if getting them in the game means is do it for the first time, I'm all for that as well. So for your own, anyone that works for you, take time to thank them, acknowledge them. And it could be, honestly, a heartfelt thing can be more powerful than anything. I know I remember I was managing 17 people in a recent job, and I took, I think it was maybe an hour, and I went to each person and I wrote them a personal note and just kind of reflected on what they've done for the organization, for me, over the last year, and gave it to people. It didn't take that long. And for me, it was just, it was an hour. For them, let me tell you, I had 2 of my employees cry. It touches people. This is the power of this topic. It touches people. it can also drive performance that's important. But, in the high-tech times that we're in, that we lose this personal connection, and it's critical to people. It's speaking at a different level that everyone needs to connect with. So that's my hope for it. This pictured product, by the way, 365 Ways to Manage Better, is a page-a-day calendar with a reminder on how to put it into practice that people love. So, so that's why I did that, and I'm excited that it's still going, and hopefully is building momentum.
Well, thank you for doing that, Bob. One of the participants asked, they said, I work for a large healthcare concern that's acquiring smaller hospitals and physician practices with their own cultures. And that person wants to know, how do you recognize those who feel disconnected from the larger company in those kind of instances? Do you have any suggestions for this person?
It's going to be everyone, by the way, because even the people, when you go through massive change, everyone feels disconnected. So it's not just the smaller players; it's the main place goes. They're not sure what the scope is now and who's doing what, and everyone feels when change happens, everyone's kind of not sure how they're affected, and we tend to push the benefits for the change, but we got to start with the person. What information, here's what we're doing, here's what we're not doing, here's how it affects you, and that before we get through those questions, people aren't open to hear about the benefits of why the organization is doing it overall. So there's a lot that can be done, and whenever you have a merger of any type, whether it's a bunch of smaller units or a merger with a larger company, you now or going forward are going to have a new company, which means it's a chance to re-gear to have a new culture. So it's a wonderful opportunity to say, here's the direction going forward, and then have the recognition and the systems all point to that new organization. And if you to honor everything that's been done in the past, you can take the best practices from what the different, in that case, hospitals, what they're doing at each of those locations, and pick some of those for that we're going to take forward for everyone to use. But there's got to be that synergy of focus. It can't just be now we're going to do it the way that the largest organization or the acquiring organization is doing it, because then you'll never incorporate the other groups. If you want to be one organization going forward, have that fresh start, the focus, and have the reinforcement, the systems and tools point to that, the milestones and working together, the ways to cross the barriers between organizations. So we become one team, not separate teams working side by side for the next 10 or 20 years, and never getting the synergy of the intent to begin with. Most mergers, by the way, fail because of this whole factor. The whole culture mix never got integrated.
Okay, so we have a question from someone, I think, who is in the federal sector, and that person is asking, how do you suggest or recommend incenting employees in the federal employment context where prizes aren't allowed?
Yes, well, first let me say that for all the thousands of organizations I work with, everyone, whether it's federal government or a small company or a major corporation or a nonprofit or an international organization, everyone tends to start with what they can't do. I'm saying, give that a rest. Don't focus on what you can't do. So in this case, we can't do prizes, so we're stuck, or focus on what you can do. Like a lot of small businesses say, well, we don't have a budget to do this stuff. I go, well, wait a minute. Take a moment and take stock of what you do have going. Because you got daily access, you got visibility with upper management. That's big. You're not rule bound by a big policy manual. You got flexibility. You need people to wear many hats. The assignments you do can be exciting as it matches people's own personal needs. You got a lot going for you. Focus on those things. How to integrate that into recognition, not what you can't do. Because at the same time, a small business might be saying that. A large business is saying, we got a 300-page policy manual. We can't just on a dime make a change. So everyone has their challenges. Identify those, or we're unionized, or in this case, we're federal government, what we can't do. You can do a lot with federal government. And in fact, there's an enormous pride in working for the federal government that doesn't get tapped often. Public service is a great mission and honor, And good recognition and good engagement ties to purpose. Make a more visible thing about that, and bring that honor out and front and center. And there's lots of ways you can do that or any aspect of that. It's not about how big the budget is and can we have trinkets and trash. It's about connecting with people in ways that are real to them.
Okay, we got a question related to measurement. The person is asking, besides surveys and focus groups, are there other methods to measuring engagement? And the second part to the question is it possible to put a metric on morale?
Well, yeah, you can put a metric on anything. It's sort of like, and the thing about all these concepts, recognition, engagement, they're all, I call them internal constructs. They're going on within people. So it's not what you see, it's what you got to actually tap into, how they feel and what they think. And that's why surveys are a way to do that. Focus groups are a good way to expand the survey. And when you do a survey, I got to tell you, because most every company that does an employee survey, they got at least one question on there. I feel valued for working here. My manager treats me with respect, something like that. And it's right on the bottom. Gallup says it's on the bottom for all the organizations of any type, nonprofit, profit, small business, government. That recognition ranks in the basement. So everyone needs this. Everyone needs to be better at this. So I guess the one thing I'd say is a survey is a good way to do that. But don't just put one data point, because then you end up with one question. Okay, people don't feel valued for working here. Now what? Now you're starting to guess at what that means, and create an index where maybe there's 5 or 6 things. I get visible. My manager's available when I need them. I get my questions answered. My coworkers I'm able to thank coworkers and I'm thanked by them. So create an index, what works for you, so you've got a richer variable. Because otherwise, it's hard to change anything with one data point. It's like looking at a golf ball and trying to decide the shape of a golf ball by looking at one dimple. It's not going to happen. But if you get a whole set of data points and they all will point to the same thing, the relationship with the manager, flexibility, access to information to do my job, all that, giving people those things is a form of recognition, and certainly it's going to trigger higher engagement. So again, the surveys have done well, and then again, not one size fits all. Maybe you survey people in a stratified way, so you look at corporate different from the field, or sales different than engineering, or administrative different than the front line. That you got, or by facility. So it's got to make sense. There can't be one question for all employees, regardless of the circumstances. Focus groups are a good way to bring out the richness of that. And ultimately, if you keep pushing to what do people really value, what do they really want more of, if you don't have a rich conversation, they're going to say, well, give me more money, or give me more points, or because all we're doing, all we got in our system now is maybe gift cards. So yeah, more gift cards. I guess give me more of those. And it's not gonna change the game.
Okay, well, that's going to need to be the last question, Dr. Bob. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Appreciate it so much. I'd wanted to take a moment to thank Achievers for sponsoring today's event. As I mentioned at the beginning, you'll all be receiving a link to an archived version of the webinar in the next 48 hours, and you're welcome to link to it and listen to it again at your leisure. And then there's also going to be a PDF of the presentation available at hrexecutive.com. Again, appreciate everybody joining us, and I hope to see you again in a future Human Resource Executive webinar. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for joining us.